Hello everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, which is a couple topics I want to discuss with you today. And the first one is the glycemic index, which comes up in a lot of discussions. I have never understood the fascination with the glycemic index, and I have yet to see anything in the way of convincing evidence that shows me that choosing foods based on the glycemic index of those foods leads to better health outcomes. Now, in case you don't know, the glycemic index ranks foods on a scale of 0 to 100 based on the extent to which they raise blood sugar after eating them. There are several issues which make the glycemic index irrelevant. One is that foods are tested one at a time, and that's simply not how humans eat. I don't know about you, but when I sit down to eat lunch, I have rice and broccoli and salad and 5 kinds of vegetables, and so nobody's tested the infinite combinations of foods that comprise our daily meals. The other major issue is that if you look at glycemic index charts online, they can be very misleading and lead to poor food choices. For example, one that I consulted showed that corn chips and M&Ms were better than watermelon, and chicken nuggets were better than white potatoes. Well, advocates claim in response to this that the glycemic index was never meant to be used by itself, but nobody's ever explained to me what to use it with in order to make it relevant. Well, a new study shows the futility of using glycemic index to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease or insulin resistance. Researchers enrolled 163 overweight patients for a 5-week controlled eating study. They were assigned to one of 4 diets, which covered meals, snacks, and calorie-containing beverages. Once the participants completed one 5-week diet, then they were switched to another. All of the people in the study had at least 2 of the diets during the study period of time. The researchers reported that the diets including low glycemic index carbohydrates did not improve insulin sensitivity, lipid levels, or blood pressure as compared to the diets that had high glycemic index foods. The researchers concluded, quote, in the context of an overall DASH-type plan, using glycemic index to select specific foods may not improve cardiovascular risk factors or insulin resistance. Furthermore, lead researcher Lawrence Apple stated in an interview that studies that looked at the relationship between low GI foods and weight loss have reported inconsistent results, and that using GI as an anti-obesity strategy was, quote, unwarranted. He suggested that people should, quote, get back to the basics, which according to him, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Includes eating whole plant foods, avoiding sweets, and foods high in saturated and trans fat. Now, critics claim that one of the issues with this study was the other foods that the participants were eating along with the low glycemic index carbohydrate foods. But this is exactly my point. Paying attention to this silly index without looking at the totality of the diet is an exercise in futility, and if you're eating a well-structured plant-based diet, there's no need to pay attention to it. So this is a useless tool, in my opinion, that's best ignored. We certainly don't focus on it here, and we try to get people to get away from focusing on it when they join. All right, so now I want to talk about another favorite topic, the Paleo Diet. Can't get enough of the Paleo Diet. It's everywhere. Well, according to a new study, there were several different types of Paleolithic diets. None of them were healthy, and most of the foods our Paleo ancestors ate are not even available anymore. So much for eating a Paleo diet. Well, in order to arrive at their conclusions, researchers looked at several types of evidence, including the chemical composition of fossil tooth enamel, evidence of wear on the teeth, craniodental anatomy. They stated, however, that these and other investigational tools can't provide all of the information needed in order to determine what early man ate. Other methodologies, such as the particular habitat of a species and anatomy, which includes digestion, locomotion, and cognitive abilities, also have to be taken into consideration as part of developing a holistic view of how people actually were living. Foraging theory also needs to be considered. It's a branch of evolutionary ecology that examines eating choices based on what are called the principles of efficiency. It shows that dietary choices are in part determined by evaluating the cost and benefit or value of foods and how readily available some foods are at any given point in time. Well, after considering all of these factors, these researchers determined that our paleo ancestors didn't eat a diet centered on animal flesh or any single other food either, but rather ate an omnivorous diet that included lots of different foods. The researchers reported that it's really difficult to determine specifically what the paleo diet was, and that there were likely lots of different variations that changed frequently since humans lived in many different environments, and that the available foods varied greatly from place to place. They pointed out that even the few hunter-gatherer societies left today, modern-day hunter-gatherer societies, eat varying diets based on where they live. Furthermore, foods today are not the same as they were in the Paleolithic era. Early humans focused on survival, and they made their food choices accordingly. Balanced diets and health-promoting eating patterns were certainly not premeditated. Success was achieved simply by eating enough calories in order to survive and reproduce. Now, perhaps the most important point is that it's almost impossible to state with any level of certainty that paleo diets, however one might want to define them, were healthier. Humans had much shorter lifespans back then, which means that they died long before the long-term effects of their eating patterns could readily be seen. One researcher said, quote, "Everyone would agree that ancestral diets didn't include Twinkies, but I'm sure our ancestors would have eaten them if they grew on trees." The bottom line is that what people ate during the Paleolithic era shouldn't really govern food choices today. The diets were highly variable. There was no paleo diet. The choices were based on survival. And there's no evidence that better health was the benefit of the diet of early man. So I think this is the whole paleo diet phenomenon is one of those things we can chalk up to an interesting storybook. Interesting hypothesis, not much basis in reality, and not to be considered when making food choices. Okay, that's all for today, and in fact all for the week. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you again next week with more news.